Jamal, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Don't you dare yes sir me ever again. Don't you dare.
What you talking about?
Don't just don't ever let that happen again. Do you understand me, sir?
Who the hell are you talking to?
I am talking to you, young man.
And welcome back to Ball Don't Lie here on Penn State Sports Night. I'm Hunter Pitcoff here, Matt Szczypiorski, episode 38. We are approaching that 40 mark. Don't worry, we'll get there in a couple weeks, but this is obviously being recorded on a Wednesday. Last night, they announced the All-Star Game festivities lineup, basically, so to get right to it. For the Skills Challenge, they got Luka Doncic, Chris Paul, Robert Covington, Julius Randle, Domantas Sabonis, and Nikola Vucevic. The three-point contest, Steph Curry, Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Zach LaVine. And then in the dunk contest, Obi Toppin, Cassius Stanley, and Anthony Simons. Matt, what was your thoughts when you heard this lineup?
Well, the dunk contest is pretty weak. I'll start with that. I think Obi Toppin is going to win that in pretty much a landslide. Anthony Simons, Simons, I don't even know if I've seen him dunk. And Cassius Stanley, he was a cool name at Duke, but he really has not done anything in the NBA. I don't really know what he can do in terms of dunking. But the skills challenge, the three-point challenge, I think it's just filled with all-stars, which is awesome. Might be the first year that those get more attention than the dunk contest, I think, because of the names they have in there. And also, how did Rocco squeeze his way into the skills challenge with all those all-stars? That was a weird name to throw in there.
That was a weird name. I have no idea how Robert Covington was in. He's not really even like a guard, because I know they tried doing like the half guards, half like bigs. Like, I wouldn't even consider him a guard. He was playing center for the Houston Rockets last year. I have no idea how this guy – yeah, like you said, like, it made sense for everybody else because, like, I'm pretty sure everyone else is going to be there anyway. So they're just like, you want to do this. But, that one was a little weird. Matt, I think this could be a sneaky good dunk contest. I know Obi Toppin might be the only big name here. But fun fact about Cassius Stanley back at Duke. Zion Williamson broke the vertical leap record there, and Cassius Stanley broke it the next year. This guy has been a walking highlight reel dunk machine since he was at Sierra Canyon with Bronny back in the day. He is a very, very good athlete. Again, not the greatest player in the world, but he's very, very athletic. And Anthony Simons, too. He can really bounce. And I remember seeing some videos leaked beforehand of him throwing down some stuff in practice. I think this could actually be a very good dunk contest. I don't think any of these guys are going to play cute. I know Obi, I'm sure he's maybe won some dunk contests. Cassius Stanley, I think, won the McDonald's All-American dunk contest, if I'm not mistaken. So these are guys that really don't have anything like to lose. This is something that they kind of get their clout up, if you will. So I actually think this is going to be a very good dunk contest. Unpopular your opinion here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just because I don't know really either of them that well other than Obi Toppin. And even Obi, you don't see much of him in the NBA, but I know he was a high flyer at Dayton. Ooh, the Dayton Flyers. Good job, Matt. But I think Anthony Simons, I've obviously never seen him do much, but I'll take your word for him and Cassius Stanley being pretty good dunkers. I hope it's a good dunk contest.
You got any predictions for each of these events? Who you think's gonna win them?
I think the three-point contest, I think Steph Curry will be in the finals against somebody else, but I think I think Curry wins. I think he wins in a landslide, actually. And then that's a pretty boring pick, but that's just what I think. And the skills challenge, you said Luka was in that, correct? So I'm going to take Luka in that as well.
Okay. You're picking Obi for slam dunk?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go with Chris Paul. Fun fact here. This will be his fifth skills competition, and he's never won one. I feel like Chris Paul's pretty competitive, and a lot of times in these competitions, some guys are very like chill, relaxed. They don't really care what happens. I don't know. Chris Paul's a pretty competitive SOB. I think he's going to want to win at least one of these. And out of all these guys, he's obviously probably the most like skilled and most best fit for this because, he's low to the ground. Obviously, he's very shifty. I think Chris Paul is going to win this one. I really do.
I don't know, man, because in the skills challenge, you do have to run up and down the court. He is pretty old, so I don't know how fast he is. If he gets those later rounds against Luka, I think Luka's faster than him, so we'll see.
Yeah, I forgot that Chris Paul can't play more than 5 minutes in an NBA game anymore. I'm sorry about that. I do agree with you. I think Steph Curry will win the three-point contest as well. His only other win was in 2015. I know he lost to Klay Thompson. I think that was the last time he ever really competed in it. So I think, he's got something to prove this year. I think he's going to win it. And it's kind of hard to bet against the greatest shooter of all time in a shooting competition. I'm going to say Cassius Stanley wins the dunk contest. I saw this guy He has legit bounce out of Duke. Out of all three of these guys, I think he's the most natural athlete of the three. I think he has the highest vertical of the three and probably the least known of the three. So I think he's going to have a bit of an underdog mentality here. And I think Cassius Stanley is going to win the dunk contest.
I mean, that's a good route to go. I mean, if you're the most underrated guy in the dunk contest, like Stanley is, it's a good way to get his name out there. So he's probably the most driven to do it.
Yeah. And so in case you guys don't know, the skills competition, a 3-point competition, will begin before the All-Star game on Sunday, March 7th. So all of this will be in one day rather than being a 2-day event. Then the All-Star game, the first half will happen. Then the slam dunk contest is going to be at halftime. And then the rest of the second half of the All-Star game will follow after. Matt, do you think this is a trend that we'll continue to see, or this is a one-time thing?
No, this is definitely a one-time thing because the NBA loves to get their money on different days. You know, Saturday is known as the All-Star competition day with the dunk contest, skills challenge, 3-point challenge, all that stuff. They're definitely going to keep it separate just for the almighty dollar, baby. That's it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Also, too, the Rising Stars game is usually on that Friday also, and they're obviously not going to do that this year. But I'm curious to see how it turns out. So back to the dunk contest and all these contests, because fans are a really big part of it. And, when everyone goes, oh, my God, like when there's like a crazy dunk and Dwayne Wade gives it a 9 out of 10, so that's that. But I always am excited. I always like seeing it when everyone throws up like the 10s, like in the stands and stuff like that. The players are like, oh, my God. That's always some of the best parts of All-Star Weekend. But unfortunately, we're not going to see it. But hopefully these guys put on a show anyway.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I think that we'll get on a show. I mean, we've just been so deprived of it. So we'll get it, hopefully.
Yeah, and last All-Star Weekend was definitely a memorable one for a bunch of reasons. Hopefully this won't be the same. But next, we're going to look at something a little more off the court, and that's LeBron James and his beef with soccer star Zlatan Ibrahimovic. I really hope I said that right. I don't really
Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah, that's the first time I've ever corrected you on a pronunciation, so I had to jump on it.
That's true. I know who he is, but again, I don't really watch soccer all that much. I probably should have, done the research beforehand. But it seems like that Zlatan, is that how you say it?
Zlatan.
He didn't do much research when he made some of these claims either. So he told LeBron to, quote, stick to sports, and that, quote, athletes should be athletes. And LeBron actually did hit him with a jab saying that he's, obviously a guy who gets his criticism all the time from other people. He said he will not ever stop using his platform and, quote, I'm kind of the wrong guy to go at. I actually do my homework on these things. So, Matt, this is still an ongoing thing. Zlatan, I'm not saying it right, am I?
Zlatan.
Zlatan, is that how you say it?
Yes.
Zlatan. A lot of soccer stars go by their first name anyway, so I'm just gonna stick with that. I'm not gonna try to his last name here. Anyways, though, he did play in the MLS for a while, in Los Angeles, ironically. So I do know that. Yeah, he basically doubled down. I think it was yesterday, saying that athletes should be athletes and politicians should be politicians. And I will say a lot of people do share his belief on this. And I get that and stuff. But at the same time, though, I feel like to tell someone what to do and how they live their life is kind of ridiculous. Like, stay in your own lane and just, do what you gotta do. You don't know LeBron personally, I don't think. So I don't understand why you're making all these criticisms, taking all the shot for clout when you're a pretty famous person that makes a lot of money in their own right.
Yeah, he obviously does not know LeBron at all, because I think if he did, he wouldn't have said this. And Hunter, if you're asking me if I'm surprised that a rich, white, European soccer player has this kind of opinion, the answer is no, I'm not surprised. Zlatan is Swedish. They don't have these kind of political and racial issues over there the same way that the U.S. does, not even close. I can understand why he said what he said, but as you said, a lot of people might share his opinion just because of his background. But he was 1,000% wrong. And LeBron handled it well, as he usually does in this situation. Athletes should continue to use their voice and platform because they know the kind of influence they have, especially a guy like LeBron James. So I couldn't disagree more with Zlatan, and I agree with LeBron. He's going to continue to use his platform as he should.
It's just ridiculous how a lot of these athletes literally slander LeBron for clout. Obviously, it doesn't happen in the NBA all that much, or even in any of the pro team sports here in the United States. But there's a boxer too. I forgot his name, but he also was for a while slandering LeBron, saying that, he's not a patriot and blah, blah, blah and stuff like that. And obviously Lauren Ingram, she was the one who made those comments initially to shut up and dribble for LeBron and Kevin Durant. I think that was aimed at both of them. And LeBron obviously did the I am more than an athlete stuff and, profited off of her comments. So that's pretty ironic. Yeah. But yeah, this is ridiculous. I mean, look, Zlatan, however the hell you say his name, he can do whatever he wants with his money. That's totally fine. That's his prerogative. But LeBron James can do the same exact thing. So if you just want to sit there and spend it on yourself, that's completely fine. But LeBron James has always been someone who, again, comes from humble beginnings, tries to use his platform to help others and to create awareness on things and to help change, quite literally put his money where his mouth is. Obviously, he's not the first athlete to ever do it, but he is one of the top athletes to do it in today's NBA and sports in general. A lot of athletes look up to him. A lot of younger players are now starting to do the same things that LeBron is doing right now. So clearly he's been a good influence and a good role model. And I've always said, if you have a platform, why not use it? It's kind of selfish of you not to. So for LeBron James, again, Zlatan is entitled to his own opinion like anybody else, but I think he's got to stay in his lane here.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, Hunter, everyone's gonna, come at LeBron because everybody's so tired of seeing him, I guess, on everything, like on SportsCenter all the time, on ESPN all the time, and having his own shows and profiting off of a lot of things. But at the end of the day, LeBron knows what he's doing. He's a good guy, and he's got a lot of good morals too, which is, the same can't always be said for a lot of top athletes, and he's got really good morals. So I don't think he should ever shut up and dribble. He knows his influence, and his influence going to be felt in this game and in this country for a long time, even after he retires.
Yeah, I mean, come on. This guy opened up a freaking school, for crying out loud, in his hometown. Like, I don't really know what else you want this man to do. And he still does plenty of other things as well. And, we don't have to list them. You guys know what it is. But I always say, if you have haters, you're great at what you do. I've always said that. If people are hating on you, that means you're doing something right. But let's talk about a team that's been doing things very wrong recently. It's the Houston Rockets. They're on a 12-game losing streak right now, Matt. Are they the worst team in the NBA right now?
Well, they're really giving Minnesota a run for their money, aren't they? I mean, we were talking about this team being better off without Harden a few weeks ago, and now look at where they are. The basketball gods are watching us, Hunter. They hear what we're saying, and they're doing the opposite of whatever we're saying.
Yeah.
This team's pitiful. John Wall has been in and out of the lineup. DeMarcus Cousins got cut, and nobody has signed him yet because nobody wants DeMarcus Cousins because he can't move. And they've been sorely missing Christian Wood. This team is booty cheeks. The GM knew what he was doing. He blew it up.
Yeah, they are quite literally going from – it's crazy. It went from literally championship contender last season. Not last season, months ago. Just months ago. This was a team trying to win championships, and now they are completely tanking. I mean, how often do you see such a drastic change like this?
The Philadelphia Eagles in football. But that's besides the point.
That wasn't intentional, though. They didn't try blowing it up. They did try to win games, and unfortunately just didn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, the Rockets suck, Hunter. Okay, they suck.
Okay, but I love the interesting thing too. Victor Oladipo, who's his numbers actually, he started off red hot for the Rockets, but he's actually struggled ever since. He turned down a 2-year, $45 million contract extension. So I'm assuming he thinks he can make more money, or he just really does not want to be in H-Town right now. Apparently, the Miami Heat are a team interested in him. I can see another couple teams also being serious for him too. Was it smart for Victor Oladipo not to secure the bag?
I think it is because I wouldn't want to play in Houston right now either. I would definitely want to try and get more, or even if he gets less money in the open market, at least play for a better team. Miami would be a great fit for him, honestly, I think. Yeah,
I agree with you. Miami would be a great fit. I think Dallas would be a good fit for him as well, just to name a couple teams. But yeah, I think that this was smart for Victor Oladipo. Do not sign your life away to be on this team because they are not trying to win games anytime soon. They'll probably just end up trading you. Also, the first time he will be a free agent, an unrestricted free agent on the open market. He can quite literally choose which team he wants to go to. But there's been a lot of debate, Matt, about the Melo debate, the Melo situation going on here between Carmelo Anthony and LaMelo Ball. However, though, they seem to settle it, and Carmelo Anthony gave LaMelo some love before the game. Both of them had really good games. Melo had 29 for the Blazers. I believe LaMelo had like 30 for the the Charlotte Hornets here. I'm not to say New Orleans Hornets. I'm like, dog.
They haven't been the New Orleans Hornets in like 8 years.
Yeah, I was like,
it's been
what?
a long time, man.
Yeah, sorry. Sometimes I speak and my brain just doesn't catch up to what I'm actually saying. It happens. But he does give him the cosign. LaMelo's been doing the 3 to the dome celebration, which is obviously a famous thing Carmelo Anthony does. Melo said it's completely cool. He respects it, passing down the torch. What were your thoughts on this, Matt? When you think of Melo, who's the guy you think of?
Well, I think it's cool that Carmelo acknowledged it, and not only acknowledged it, but pretty much gave him his blessing to do it because he loves the tradition in basketball, loves to pass down his legacy, whatever. But when I do think of Melo, I think of Carmelo Anthony. I think I'll always think of Carmelo. He's just what we grew up with, so I'm always going to associate him with that name. And I also think LaMelo is really fun to say, so I don't think he needs a nickname. So I'm just going to keep calling him LaMelo.
That's fair. Yeah, I think it's going to be like a passing of the guards here. Again, we grew up watching Carmelo Anthony basically our entire lives. Got drafted in 2003 and has played in 18 NBA seasons now. And I think it's going to be the same thing with these other kids. I think LaMelo Ball is a superstar in the making also, just like Carmelo Anthony was. Both these guys were red hot coming out the gate for their team. Both drafted third overall too, fun fact. And now we're seeing LaMelo Ball being a rising star in the league. I think it's just going to be one of those things like now kids, growing up now are probably going to start referring to LaMelo as Melo. So it's just a changing of the guards. I don't think it's a disrespect thing. I think if anything, he's just paying homage.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely paying homage, and I think it's definitely a divide in our generations, I guess, on who's going to call who LaMelo or who's going to call who Melo. But I do like LaMelo. I think it's a cool name.
It is a cool name. But speaking of LaMelo Ball himself, or Melo, whatever the heck you want to call him, he won Rookie of the Month yet again, along with Tyrese Haliburton. Both of them putting up awesome numbers this month. James Harden and Devin Booker also winning Players of the Month. Weird thing, Harden won it in the Eastern Conference. Devin Booker winning it despite not being originally named an All-Star, for crying out loud. And the team, I believe, had a 9-3 record in the West during that time. What do you think about this? Do you agree with them?
Well, it's funny how that works, Hunter, is that Booker got Player of the Month but wasn't an All-Star originally. That's pretty crazy.
It's crazy.
Pretty it's a nice little divide they got there going on in the NBA office. But I think he definitely deserved it, especially with the way his team was playing. James Harden, I think, deserved it as well. He's been the only guy in Brooklyn playing consistently, and they had a really great month after starting off pretty poor. It feels like Kyrie misses every other game, and KD hasn't played in like anything other than like 4 games this year, it feels like. So James Harden has been consistent since he's gotten there. He's been a great player for them. He's kept his team afloat. If he wasn't there, God knows what the Nets would be like right now without Kyrie and KD playing consistently. And I got to mention my guy, Tyrese Haliburton, shooting 43% from 3 this season and averaging 30 minutes a game off the bench. What a king.
Yeah, it was crazy to think he fell to 12 there. And we were like, what is the rest of the league doing right now, letting this guy fall so much in the draft? And then he's shown exactly why. Think about it. He's not even the best point guard on his team, and he's still getting buckets out there. Like, that's how good this guy is. But Devin Booker winning his first Player of the Month, I believe, in his career. I don't think he's won it before. Should probably double check that, but I'm pretty confident in that. So shout out to D Book doing his thing. And James Harden, like you said, Kyrie's been missing games. KD maybe won't play until like April, I'm hearing, perhaps.
Wow.
Do you think James Harden should be getting some more MVP love? I mean, this guy has leading the league in assists. He's still averaging about 25 points per game and really carrying the load for this Brooklyn Nets team. And there's some MVP chatters coming in Brooklyn now because they are one of the hottest teams in the league. Do you think James Harden should get some love there?
I think that'd be interesting, but I don't know if he'll be able to win it just because of the star power they have on the team when they all do get back together and when they're all playing together. I think Player of the Month is definitely something that shouldn't be overlooked, but I don't know about MVP just because I think he's going to be overshadowed by KD and Kyrie eventually. And the fact, has anybody ever won an MVP while being traded mid-season? Probably not.
I don't think so. That's pretty hard.
That'd be pretty weird.
But you never know. I mean, I feel like the Nets would have to go on a ridiculous run, which they kind of are right now. But like they'd have to really separate themselves from like the Sixers and the Bucks in the Eastern Conference, like be like the clear-cut number 1 team, maybe in basketball. And James Harden would have to keep doing what he's doing, which could happen. It's not impossible. James Harden, I gotta give this guy credit. While he was maybe slumping around, doing his thing in Houston right before he left. Let's not forget, this guy almost plays 82 games every single season. He's as durable as it comes. This guy never misses games, and he almost always plays well every single night. And a lot of players in today's NBA do not do that. They love load managing. James Harden has never been that dude.
Yeah, give him credit where credit is due. He is a very consistent player, and he consistently will go out and give you 30 and 10 a game. That's just what he does. He's a great player. There's no doubting that. He just needed a new situation, and now he's thriving in that new situation.
Absolutely. But let's also look at another lefty here, Domantas Sabonis for the Indiana Pacers. You like that transition? KD, he's still going to be the team captain for his team, but I don't know how that's going to work. I guess he gets like 1 extra draft pick because he will not be playing. That's who Sabonis replaced. A guy who a lot of people thought maybe should have been All-Star originally. Definitely at least over Nikola Vucevic. However, though, originally Jimmy Butler got asked to be in it, but he said no because Bam Adebayo wasn't gonna be in it. Do you agree? Do you think Sabonis should have been a replacement? Or do you think it should have been someone else?
Is that Jimmy Butler thing true?
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, that's the ultimate level of petty, but I would expect nothing less from Jimmy Butler. That's totally fits his personality. But in terms of Domantas Sabonis, I think he deserved to get in the first go around. I had him. We did our All-Star teams on this podcast. I had him on my reserves. All-Star replacements are just it just feels like when the NBA puts players in the game when they should have been there in the first place, honestly. And it's just the NBA acknowledging the mistakes and putting them in there for an injury replacement. But he should have been there from the get-go.
For me, I think Sabonis has been an all-star caliber player this year. I definitely don't want to discredit him, what he's done. He has been terrific. But the Pacers have really struggled recently. And for me, it's a what have you done for me lately kind of game, especially in a shortened season. I think Bam Adebayo should have been the replacement. Miami Heat are playing way better recently. He's been terrific. Jimmy Butler missed a ton of games to start the year, and so have other guys. He has been having the best season of his career. I think Bam Adebayo should have been the replacement. That's who I had originally in my all-star game. So I will respectfully disagree and say Bam should have been in there.
That's fair. I mean, Bam Adebayo's had a great season as well. Really pick your poison there.
Absolutely. But let's move on to this. This is an interesting fact. So of course, Matt, COVID, there's been, vaccines and stuff. The rates are starting to dip just a little bit, which is obviously a good thing. But at the same time, a lot of states are allowing a lot of these indoor arenas and venues to have more people. So a lot of teams are now starting to allow more fans into the arena, as much as 20 to 25%. There's also, of course, Texas, who decide that COVID's over on their own right. Greg Abbott's like, guys, we beat it. We won. But, I guess Texas just go do Texas, I guess. But, and that's interesting because Greg Popovich said that we'll be following the NBA protocols, not what the state protocols is. So, again, Popovich always someone who speaks out and tries to do the right thing in his mind. But I'm just curious, Matt, if there was a Sixer game going on at Wells Fargo, would you go?
Heck yeah, I would. That team needs to be bullied. But I just need some live sporting events in my life, quite honestly. I also think I would feel pretty safe in that environment, being far away from the other fans and having to wear masks at all times. If people follow that is another thing, but I think the rules are set up in place to succeed. Also, there will be something called a clean team at Philly sporting events, which I think is funny. And I also would trust that. And would I be able to afford going to one of these games is the question. And that answer is most definitely no. But if I was offered a ticket, I'd probably take it.
Okay, I'm just curious, Matt. Do you remember the last time you were at like a live sporting event?
I went to a Sixers-Celtics game in January of 2020. So when Al Horford was still on the team, and when Al Horford was still on the team, and right before COVID, yeah.
All right, that's interesting. Yeah, I have a little bit of a unique perspective. I don't want this to come off as a brag, but just because of my job, I've been at Beaver Stadium and the Bryce Jordan Center and Pagula.
Get a load of this guy.
No, I'm just
He's
kidding.
pretty cool.
No, honestly, like I've been at these games before. During this, I guess it's just kind of a blessing, I guess. But it's definitely different not having fans. There's been like families in the stands, but that's about it. So it's definitely been different. But I will say that, I felt pretty safe at these events. I wear my mask. I'm socially distanced, 6 feet plus from everybody. And, for me, I think, as long as they're able to, everyone does their job and does their part, I think this is very doable. And, it's exciting to see that things are starting to open up again.
Absolutely. And it's going to be great to have even just a little bit of fans in there, create some non-virtual noise in the arenas. It's going to be great come playoff time as well. Maybe get some more fans in there too.
Yep. And usually as one door opens, another one closes, and that's going to be the career of Joakim Noah. He said he was retiring. Yeah, no, you like that transition. He wants to retire at Chicago Bulls, so maybe he'll sign like a one-day contract or whatever. Rightfully so. That's obviously where he got his career. It's wild, Matt, because I remember watching him at Florida. So the thing now to see that college players I watched in college or retiring from basketball makes me feel very old.
Yeah, now we feel old. It's like when dudes like Zion are NBA All-Stars and they're younger than we are. Yeah. That always makes me feel great. Makes me feel great about what I'm doing with my life. But Joakim Noah was a monster defensively and an expert trash talker. I'll never get lost on him. Mad respect, but he didn't deserve that $72 million he got from the Knicks.
Yeah, Phil Jackson, I don't think did enough research when he made that signing. But yeah, Joakim Noah, again, this guy was fourth in MVP voting, I believe in 2013-2014 season, first team All-NBA, defensive player of the year. Paved the way for Rudy Goobers, as Matt accidentally texted me yesterday when I brought up this topic. But so shout out Joakim Noah, New York kid. Also worth knowing too that he's a winner. Chicago, some of their best days, post Michael Jordan were when he was there. Back-to-back champion with the Florida Gators. Chomp chomp. Surprised Billy Donovan maybe didn't want him on the team since, he is the head coach there now. But yeah, shout out to Joakim Noah, I guess. And congrats on a career. Unfortunately, injuries kind of ended it for him a little early, but I'll give the guy props where it's due.
Yeah, he had a great free throw release too. It was pretty funny to watch.
Oh boy. Yikes.
Pretty funny.
Let's talk about a guy who's got a pretty nice stroke though, and that's Buddy Hield, fastest player to reach 1,000 3-pointers made in NBA history. Did in 350 games. Steph Curry did in 369 games. So is Buddy Hield going to finish first in all-time 3-pointers made, Matt?
Probably not, just because I don't think he'll last as long as Steph Curry, even Ray Allen did. But it's crazy that he beat Curry to first to 1,000 3-pointers. Would also be crazy if he would be traded to the Sixers for Danny Green. That'd be really crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. You keep pitching that the last, year or you've just been playing the seeds, just hoping it just grows into something.
Somebody's gonna watch this eventually, Hunter. Somebody has to.
People do watch clearly, because every time we call somebody out, they seem to play better instantly after we do it.
Exactly.
But kind of making us look stupid. We're just that extra motivation, to push someone over the edge. But I will say, it's also worth noting too that Steph Curry missed a bunch of games early on in his career, so he wasn't always 100%. A lot of people thought his career could have been over because of the amount of ankle injuries he had. So, and Steph Curry then, onslaughted, kept breaking his own record for most threes in a season. So no, he's not going to catch Steph Curry. But Buddy Hield could finish pretty freaking high on that list. He could be like top 10, top 5 potentially, because he does make a bunch of threes. That is his game. So I wouldn't be shocked, if he really climbs up the list when he gets older.
Yeah, it's going to depend on how long he sticks around, I think. And I don't know how much longer he's going to be around. He's in the prime of his career right now, probably. But it depends on how many championships he wins for the Sixers. So I don't know.
Yeah, so the fact that we're bringing up the Sacramento Kings on this podcast really just feeds into our podcast motto here, and that is
no team left behind.
Exactly. So we're going to move on to our player of the week, just like we do every week. We each give 3 players. We don't tell each other beforehand, so it's funny if we ever have the same list. Matt, who's first for you?
Well, I'm going to go with a guy who has made me eat my words past couple weeks, and that's Giannis Antetokounmpo. In an effort to make me look stupid, Giannis and the Bucks wanted to tear this past week after I said I wasn't sold on them last week. Before last night's blowout loss to the Nuggets, the Bucks had won 5 in a row, and Giannis was a big part of that. In his last 6 games, Giannis is averaging 34 points per game and has scored at least 36 points in 4 of those games. The reigning MVP heard me talking smack.
He definitely did. We know some people be listening now here. Shout out Ryan Rucco, who listened to us last week after we gave him some love. But yeah, not flex or anything. But like you said, we did call out the Bucks. They were looking kind of bad, but Giannis and Milwaukee have started to pick it up again. Drew Holiday also came back from injury, and I think that was a big reason why they struggled. So I think that now that they have a little bit more of a healthy roster, we're starting to see them win some more games.
Yeah, and they're definitely going to turn around. It's going to be interesting. Second half, I think the Bucks and Sixers played their first game March 17th, which is one of the first games back. So that'll be interesting. They'll probably be gunning for that 2 and 3 seed because I think Brooklyn's going to run away with the 1 seed eventually. Yeah,
they very well may. And Giannis has had a great season too. Probably won't win MVP because very hard to three-peat MVP. But Giannis has had a great year too. So let's give the man credit where it's due. Next on my list here, first on my list, I'd say, is Kemba Walker. He's had a rough start to the season, had a lot of knee injuries, had to adjust to the new team because new players, but also Jaylen Brown really broke out this year too. So he went from being the number 1 guy when he first came there to being probably now the number 3 guy. So, but the Celtics, who were really struggling, Matt, they fell below 500. I've on a 3-game win streak, and I think Kemba Walker is a big reason why, averaging 26 points, almost 7 assists, and 4 rebounds in 33 minutes per game too. So he's doing it at a high volume here. If he's able to keep it up, I think the Celtics team can really get back on track.
Yeah, I think so too, which is scary and disheartening all in the same. But I think Kemba Walker just needed to get his legs back under him, especially coming off of off-season knee surgery. That takes a little bit to get back from, and hopefully he's starting to get it back now because I do like Kemba Walker's game. I just hate that he plays for the Celtics.
Yeah, if Kemba Walker is able to get it going, we know what Jason's game with Jaylen Brown done this year. Even Danny Ainge, the president of the team, said that other guys outside them need to step up. They're not the reason we're losing. So the fact that Kemba's getting healthier again, he's starting to find his role back in this offense, that is going to make the Celtics really deadly. So, Matt, who else is on your list here?
I've got the former Apple to Bleacher Report's eye, Zion Williamson. He's kind of flown a bit under the radar this season because he hasn't been living on all of our timelines. Jokes aside, he has had a great year and will be an all-star on Sunday for the first and definitely not last time. He's averaging 29 points per game over the past week and even absolutely beat up on the media's defensive player of the year, Rudy Gobert, on Monday night in their upset of Utah. I will never miss a chance to call out Rudy Gobert. He absolutely bullied him on Monday night, and I loved watching it. Thank you, Zion, and he's played really well.
Yeah, he knocked Rudy Gobert down.
He did.
He gave it to him. I think Zion can do it to just about anybody in the NBA, though.
Heck yeah.
But Zion is a monster. This guy, again, the big time name, of course, all the hype, ESPN just wants to, highlight him any chance they can. But Zion is a really, really good basketball player. One of the best in the NBA right now, if we're keeping it real. Most dominant paint scorer maybe in basketball right now. Biggest athletic freak who almost said he was going to do the dunk contest, but then didn't do it. Teased the fans and did not like that at all. But maybe he saw the field. He was like, I'll pass. But yeah. Anyways, though, but looking at Zion, I love how the Pelicans have used him this year. It's funny. So they are actually using him a lot more in pick and roll situations where he's the primary ball handler. They were using him I saw this weird stat. This isn't off the top, but I think it was like 2 times per game he was using the primary ball handler on a pick and roll. Now it's 11 times per game. That's just this year alone. And he's been very successful, a very underrated passer too, something that he showed at Duke, but now they're really letting him fly. And played a lot of point guard at high school also, which is scary to think, especially when he's going against those 5'5", 15-year-old kids. But so Zion Williamson, is an absolute stud, Matt. The Pelicans seem like they're kind of figuring out how to use him in the right ways and use him in different ways. And I think we're only going to see his numbers keep getting better.
Absolutely. And it's crazy that a guy that is as small as he is height-wise, only 6'8", but he's so big and so muscular and so dominant down low. And especially since he only pretty much shoots in the paint. He doesn't shoot a lot of outside shots, and he still dominates. He's still one of the better interior scorers in the league, which is impressive.
Yeah, he's basically a defensive lineman playing basketball pretty much. That's probably the best way to describe it. Next on my list here, though, we're going to look at a guy who is in the opposite of that rivalry, Duke-UNC, and that's going to be Harrison Barnes. He's been playing pretty well this season, but over the last 7 days, averaging over 23 points per game, 6 assists, and 7 rebounds, while shooting 55% from the field. So the Kings suck. That, we know that already. But with him playing a lot better and on a somewhat reasonable deal, making around $18 to $20 million per year over the next 2 seasons before his contract expires, the Kings obviously aren't going to win a whole lot of games anytime soon. I think, him playing well is going to help the Kings maybe because he could be a nice trade piece and a team maybe would be interested in him.
That's true because he is a veteran presence. He has won an NBA championship. He won one with the Warriors. So he could be an attractive piece, especially if he keeps shooting the way he has of late. It just sucks he plays in Sacramento where careers go to die. But fortunately for him, his career is not dead yet.
All right. it's not really a Woj bomb, but I have some news here. The Lakers are looking to add either Hassan Whiteside or JaVale McGee.
Should just bring back JaVale McGee.
Yeah. I guess. Marc Gasol, Kyle Kuzma didn't play. Anthony Davis obviously is going to be out for a little bit, so maybe they want.
And LeBron's out tonight as well.
Yeah. So against the Kings, actually. So
wow.
This is probably the most love the Kings will get on this podcast. No team does get left behind here on Ball Don't Lie, as we've shown. But Matt, who is last on your list here?
This is kind of a stab in the dark here, but I got Derrick Rose. A lot of people question the fit for him in New York when he was traded there, but he was fit. He has fit into the bench squad seamlessly. In his last 4 games, he is averaging 16 points per game and 7.5 assists, all coming off the bench while shooting 50% from the floor and 58% from 3. He had to miss last night's loss to the Spurs because of contact tracing due to COVID, but he has been awesome since he put the Knicks jersey back on for Tom Thibodeau.
He has been. Again, I think Tom Thibodeau said like every team he's coached, been a head coach for in the NBA, Derrick Rose has been on it. So, that's his guy. They brought him in there for a reason, and he has definitely played big dividends for a pretty young Knicks team that's looking to make the playoffs, like you said. Last but not least on my list is a guy who is playing for a team that probably won't make the playoffs, the Oklahoma City Thunder. That's Darius Bazley, but averaging 20 and 8 on 57% shooting from the field. One of the bright spots on the Thunder this year. Didn't really get a whole lot of playing time last year because they were trying to make the playoffs. They're playing their veteran guys. But this is his chance to shine and see what an Oklahoma Thunder can see what they have in Darius Bazley. And so far, he's looked pretty impressive. Maybe it could be a nice piece for them down the road.
Yeah, honestly, I honestly had no idea who you were talking about when you brought him up, but I did Google him real quick here. He's playing pretty well. I guess in the Thunder, you do have to get a lot of minutes if you're a young, unknown player, and he's a power forward, so I'm assuming he's behind Al Horford, so I'm sure he gets a lot of minutes. So I guess he's doing pretty well. You always tend to throw these names at me that I have no idea who you're talking about, and I usually go with the more traditional names, but yeah, shout out Darius Bazley. I hope you're watching, man.
Yeah, no player gets left behind on ball don't lie either.
Oh wait, he's a lefty? Heck yeah.
He's a lefty. He is a lefty, super athletic too. This guy is like a freak, if you will, athletically. Yeah, he a little fun fact here. He was gonna go to Syracuse coming out of high school, then declined, then signed with Rich Paul in Clutch. Then he decided to take an internship with New Balance and still somehow got drafted in the first round. So the Thunder did see his talent, and so far he's not too bad. So they gotta evaluate their pieces here, and Bazley, maybe he's a keeper with Lou Dort. Who knows? Build a franchise around those two guys. Am I right?
Welcome to the torture chamber, baby. Hell yeah.
That's great. Oh my God, I love that. That's gonna wrap up our players of the week here. Now we're gonna talk about the problems going on in Atlanta. And wow, who would have thought that this would have happened before the season started? I have no idea. But
that would be you.
Is the second coach fired in the NBA this season. He was 63 and 120 overall ever since being hired in 2018. The report said that Trae Young and others were not very happy. They wanted a new head coach. Apparently, Trae Young and him had some beef. They wanted a new voice in the locker room, and they got it. Nate McMillan got the blessings from Lloyd Pierce to be the new head coach of the team. Obviously, has a bunch of head coaching experience with the Pacers and the Portland Trailblazers, so I guess it was good to have him on the bench to at least fill in for the time being. The Hawks have been disappointing this season. They are 11th in the East with a 15-20 record, 5-11 over their last 16 games. So they have struggled mightily. Bogdan Bogdanović, though, he has come back after playing only 9 games this season, 5 points in 16 minutes, so they'll acclimate him in the roster. DeAndre Hunter, who's having a good season, we talked about, he is, going to be out for quite some time, it looks like still. And wow, all their free agent acquisitions don't fit, and it doesn't make sense. I wonder who's been saying that since November. I just wonder who's, I don't know, Matt. Someone was saying it, but what do you think about this firing from Lloyd Pierce? Was it worth it?
I think it was at this point. They just needed to start over. And like you said, the free agent acquisitions did not fit at all. Maybe with the new coach in there, maybe they'll fit a little bit better, but I doubt it. Maybe they'll just try to blow it up and have kind of get McMillan's roster, the roster that he wants in there. I think it was definitely time. Lloyd Pierce, a Sixers disciple, actually, he was a coach in the process squad with Brett Brown. So maybe we should have seen this coming.
Yeah, that's true. He is a Sixers disciple, and this was viewed as a very good hire. Although had no coaching experience, was a very well-respected guy and still is well-respected. But yeah, it didn't work out here. I think it's one of those situations. He went to a young team. And part of it's they're a young team, but I do think they spent all this money on these guys and it still wasn't working. Your star player's not happy with you. It seemed like a recipe for disaster, and his job was probably on the line. But Trae Young, again, having a great individual season, but again, not leading to wins at all. Wasn't even named an all-star this year, despite being an all-star starter last year, and probably having a better season statistically this year too. So I kind of want to know, they obviously responded nicely here. They won against Miami Heat by 14 points last night. So clearly, they at least have responded some way, shape, or form. But do you think the Hawks can go on a little bit of a run here with the new head coach and McMillan, or do you think the rest of the season is just not going to go well here?
Nate McMillan is a solid coach and got the best in the regular season out of some mediocre Pacers teams. So there's some hope he can turn it around, but I would be shocked if they, did anything to turn this around, really. I would like to say they will likely miss the playoffs, but I just can't say that because the bottom of the Eastern Conference is so bad and inconsistent. That inconsistency in the bottom of the East to go along with the expanded postseason is the reason we cannot count this team out quite yet. But as far as being like a playoff contender once they get in the playoffs, if they do get there, no, definitely not.
I'll count them out. They're not going to make the playoffs. I'll say it. Yeah, look, this team's not good. I was saying it before the season started. I'm like, this is a team that was almost dead last in defensive efficiency and defensive rating the year before. And they did literally nothing to fix that. They signed Danilo Gallinari, who they said wasn't even going to be a starter for them this year. They signed Rondo, who barely plays. Chris Dunn hasn't played a single game for them this year. And Bogdan Bogdanovic only has played in 10 games this year. That's it. So, like, look, I mean, I guess that one's a little more unfortunate. But these fits did not make sense. They draft Onyeka Okongwu, but they have almost the same exact player in Clint Capella on the team, who's also getting paid about $20 million a year. I don't know why you trade for him. Then you got guys like DeAndre Hunter and Kevin Huerter and Cam Reddish, who now have to, like, basically fight for minutes with this team that's rebuilding. John Collins, he sounds unhappy. He may not want to be there. And then at the end of the day, you might piss off Trae Young enough that he doesn't want to be there either. So this Hawks team is not very well ran. That's clearly what, the cards are showing us right now. And I'm not shocked at all what's happening. I've been saying this before the season started. So the fact they're imploding, I mean, everybody else is like, oh, I didn't see this coming. But I can't lie. I did see this coming. I knew this was going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, that you did call that from the jump, Hunter. That's a good point. And I think it is more infuriating the fact that they spent all this money and those free agents just have not done anything at all. And if anything, they've taken some time away from their building, from what they're building with the young guys and them getting some development. But, Hunter, now that you've said all this and said, you got your piece in with saying you were right and all this, the NBA guys are going to watch this and the Hawks are going to go on a 7-game winning streak now. So I hope you're ready for that.
Yeah, probably. The Hawks are going to probably end up with like the 4th seed in the playoffs. Like, oh God, of course.
Yeah.
Go figure. But yeah, I'm curious to see how Nate McMillan does there. He's a pretty successful head coach. And had a nice little run there in Indiana. Just couldn't get anything done in the playoffs. And then actually kind of the same thing in Portland too. So I guess they'll get to the playoffs maybe, but then they'll get swept by somebody. But let's talk about a team that I'll even admit I did not see this coming with the New York Knicks. So ever since Bobby Schmurder got released from jail, they are 3-2, I believe. They did lose last night, but they're playing a lot better. They have a chance to secure a 500 record, over 500 record, for the first time before All-Star break since the 2012-2013 NBA season. So coincidence? I think not. Schmurder gang will say they're currently 6th in the Eastern Conference, right at 500, 18-18. Matt, I think we can probably both agree we did not see this coming from the Knicks this year.
No, definitely not. Even with Tom Thibodeau being hired, I just figured they would all play their starters 48 minutes a game. I didn't think they would turn around this drastically and play this well, especially with Elfrid Payton at point guard. But they have surprised all of us this season. Julius Randle's really taken off. RJ Barrett has taken that next step. I will eat my words again there. They've acquired Derrick Rose, who's looked really good. Emmanuel Quickley has been awesome off the bench, even though Tom Thibodeau refuses to start him for whatever reason. Justice for Emmanuel Quickley. But they have played really well. They are 2nd in defensive rating. They were 1st for a while. They don't score that easily, but they don't make it easy on their opponents either. They play a lot of low-scoring games, which is how I think they like it.
Yeah, they're dead last in point, or 2nd to dead last in points per game, but 2nd defensive rating behind none other than the Los Angeles Lakers, Matt. So just had to throw that out there. Also 7th in block percentage, 8th in rebound percentage as well. So this is a scrappy team that, gets in your face and makes you play their brand of basketball. Rough, gritty New York basketball. I know the fans really like that, in the Big Apple right now. But Julius Randle, like you said, this man has been a monster this season, an all-star, a guy who might be, the favorite to win most improved player, averaging 23.4 points per game, 5.5 assists, 10.9 rebounds. And here are these shooting numbers: 48% from the field, almost 42% from three. Where did this come from? And shooting the most amount of attempts per game in his entire career, and 80% from the foul line. I mean, Matt, how is he able to take this next step?
Well, he truly worked on his shot over the offseason. He was ready to be the face of the Knicks offense come training camp. There was no doubt about that, even after struggling a lot last year. Knicks fans are ready to jump off the Julius Randle bandwagon last year. They hated him. They wanted him gone. And this year, he's obviously been the face of the team, has been an all-star level player all year. And he's really improved his outside shot, too, dramatically even. He went from shooting 27% from three last year to 42% this year. Credit Julius Randle. He really, really improved his shot over the offseason. I mean, let's be real. The Knicks did have 9 months of offseason to improve it. But for credit to him for doing it, he's been a great player for them all year long.
It's funny that he was able to do that while a certain player in the Philadelphia 76ers just seemed to not be able to do it.
Hunter, you didn't have to say that. Why? Why did you do that?
Man. Oh, I'm just pointing it out there. Julius Randle can shoot threes.
It's because Ben Simmons was busy getting ready for the playoffs, Hunter.
He's too busy crying over Kendall Jenner leaving him.
Okay.
That was probably the issue. Okay. But looking at Julius Randle here, physically he looks as good as he has too. It seems like he's a lot more ripped, lost a lot of weight. And so his conditioning, again, third in the NBA in minutes per game right now, and he's a big man. Don't typically see that very often. So he knew that when Tom Thibodeau was there, he's like, okay, I'm gonna play a lot of minutes. If Tom Thibodeau does that and does anything, he runs his players into the ground. So Julius Randle, credit for him for getting his body right, getting his game right, and as a result, that hard work is paying off.
Yeah, absolutely. And he knew as soon as Tibbs was signed, he needed to get his body in shape. And probably, going through Tibbs practices and playing in his games, that's probably what's led to that shredded body. But yeah, it's also led to him playing a lot more, at which in turn leads to him scoring more, getting more stats there, if you will, and really boosting his name into all-star consideration, even most improved player consideration. I think he's probably one of the favorites right now, considering the way he's got this team playing.
I'd probably say him or like Jaylen Brown are probably like the front runners. Maybe throw Christian Wood in there, although he has missed a bunch of games, so it's a little hard to pick him. But I'd say those two guys are probably either one right now would have to be my pick personally. But looking at the Knicks here, also like you said, RJ Barrett having a nice second year. Manuel Quickley looking like a guy who could be first team all rookie. Doesn't even start, but still getting his numbers respectively. The Derrick Rose has been a great impact for this team. You allude to him in your players of the week, 7-4 since they got Derrick Rose. So he is leading winning basketball and being the head of the snake off that second unit for the Knicks. And it seems like they also have a lot of pieces that just fit together. I call them specialists, if you will. They got great rim protection with Mitchell Robinson and Nerlens Noel. Noel averaging 2 blocks per game. Pretty good for a guy who doesn't even start. Reggie Bullock, this guy is a 3-and-D guy to a T, knocks down a lot of threes. And then Elfrid Payton, at least a good defender, not the greatest offensive point guard, but they have a lot of guys who can score. So, and this is a very good defensive team. So having that guy does have a purpose. So it's not the end of the world that he is starting, although, the Manuel Quickley, chatter will always be there. But I want to be, let's keep it real here, Matt. How well do you think the Knicks could do this season? I know they have a tough slate of games coming up. I believe they have one of the hardest schedules in the NBA. But do you think this is a team that could cause any sort of noise in the playoffs? And do you think they even make the playoffs?
I think they'll make the playoffs. I think they'll probably be one of those teams in the play-in tournament from the 7 to 10 range. I just don't see them, especially with their schedule getting a lot harder in the second half. They have a couple West Coast trips, a couple 4-game stretches that are just brutal. I think they'll make the playoffs. I think they'll make it past the play-in tournament. But I think once they get into the postseason, I don't think they're gonna make it out of the first round, especially since they'll be probably matched up with one of the top 3 teams in the East. I don't question their defense, not at all, but I question whether they have the ability to outscore the elite teams in the East in a 7-game series.
Yeah, this team kind of ironically reminds me of the Brooklyn Nets a little bit a couple years ago when they had D'Angelo Russell and stuff. Another former Dark Age Laker who, had a breakout season, and then the rest of the players were pretty good too. It's kind of like Julius Randle and company in New York. But yeah, we're gonna really see what the Knicks are about in these upcoming games because, like you said, they have one of the hardest schedules in the NBA coming up. It is not going to be an easy second half of the season for the Knicks. If they're able to withstand it, though, good for them. I do think this is a good team. I think they're going to cause some trouble, maybe depending on the matchup for a team. I think they get killed by the Nets. I think that they match up kind of well with the Sixers, but don't see them beating them or even the Bucks. But any other team, if they happen to get in the 4-5 range, or maybe like I don't know, they play like a Heat, or they play the Raptors, or they play the Pacers, someone like that, I think they could potentially get a win. Maybe not the Heat. I don't think they'd beat the Heat. But I think that they could potentially, depending on their matchup, I think they could win a series. But it really depends. But look at the Knicks here. This is the team we thought would be contending for Cade Cunningham in the draft this year. This is a team that we thought would be tanking, trying to get the number 1 pick. But that doesn't seem like it's going to be the case. I think they are a playoff team. I think that they've had a phenomenal season. They've been the best surprise probably in the NBA this year. And I think no matter really what happens, let's say completely implode, I think this should be considered a successful year in New York.
I absolutely agree. And I think if anything, this is just, there was a report that came out yesterday that there will likely be a free agent attraction to the New York Knicks now. And I think players might even want to get traded over there now that they're starting to play a lot better. now that they have like a legit future. I don't think Julius Randle is the guy for them. He shouldn't be their number one option, but he would be a great second or third option on an elite team as long as they get that other player.
I think Julius Randle is going to be the trade piece, though. That's the thing. I think that's a big trade. I do. And I think the guy who I'm hearing they're going to try to go after is Karl-Anthony Towns. Yeah.
If you're the Knicks, I don't know if I would do that. I don't know. I think Julius Randle fits really well for that team right now, and I think they like the Mitch Robinson, Nerlens Noel kind of. Well, maybe Nerlens Noel isn't a long-term answer there, but I think they like Mitch Robinson at center there. So I don't know if I would do that. I would try to do that trade without.
Way better Mitchell Robinson.
Well, obviously, but I think if I was giving up Julius Randle that deal, I don't know if I would do that if I was a Knicks fan.
I don't know. I mean, I can't be too attached, but Julius Randle's had a great year there. That's a very good point. But Karl-Anthony Towns is a Jersey kid, grew up right near New York. So, he maybe wants to go play, close to home, if you will. And I don't know. That's what I heard. I heard Karl-Anthony Towns, who the guy is, I heard it's him. So that's, what I've heard around the grapevine. But let's talk about a team that's definitely going to be potentially wheeling and dealing at the deadline. And that is the New Orleans Pelicans. They're stuck in a weird spot. And it's funny, Matt, because their biggest trade piece right now is a guy who we called down this podcast. I thought he was going to get traded. I made it like a lock. I said it on a segment. I'm like, well, we did. I was like, Lonzo Ball is going to get traded. And all he did was have the best month of his career as soon as I said that. He's statistically the best three-point shooter this month, past February. Only player to shoot over 45% on at least 8 attempts per game in the NBA over that month. This man was shooting 30% from three, Matt, the first 5 weeks of the season. I don't know what happened. And then also worth noting, too, some other fun facts here. He was shooting 58% from the foul line, and now he shot 86% in February. So, Matt, what happened to Lonzo Ball? Did he not listen to this Ball Don't Lie podcast?
I think he definitely did. That's the only explanation I have. I don't know how the heck he turned it around.
His last name in the name of our podcast, so
that is true. I mean, maybe we should copyright him. Maybe we should get Big Baller brand as our sponsor. That'd be interesting.
That'd be an interesting.
But, I don't even know if they make stuff anymore. But I think Lonzo Ball, he's been really inconsistent throughout his career. He's had stretches like this where he's looked really good, and he's had stretches like January where he looked horrible. So he's really, you don't know what you're going to get from him from any stretch of time. I think this is just one of his swings right now.
Yeah, according to ESPN, he is 12th in the entire NBA in plus minus, which is a pretty important stat. It basically means your team plays really well when you're on the court. However, though, they have been struggling. The Pelicans, they're statistically one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA. Offense has not really been the issue. It was funny because they were great on defense to start the year, bad on offense, and now it is quite literally flip-flop. So I have no idea how that happens, but Stan Van Gundy said that he'd rather it be this way because he thinks defense is a little bit more fixable than having offensive talent, which of course they have on that team. But now that he's playing really well, and if he does keep it up, it brings up an interesting dilemma like we've referred to because he is going to be a restricted free agent. They did not give him an extension entering this season and want him to prove it. I'm hearing he could make as much as $80 million on a contract. Matt, do you still think that the Pelicans should look to move him, or you think this is a guy who could be there long term?
Honestly, this man is too drastically inconsistent for me to give him $80 million. But the Pelicans may have other ideas, especially with the way he's been playing lately and the fact that they don't have a true solution there at point guard. They could maybe fork over that money, but I wouldn't do it for Lonzo. He's just too inconsistent of a shooter. He's a great passer. Obviously, he's a good defender, but his shot is just too inconsistent for me to fork over $80 million for.
Yeah, Lonzo is such an interesting thing because I feel like he's such a good fit in that team because he's doesn't need the ball in his hands, selfish player who is great throwing lobs to Zion Williamson. We've definitely seen that connection be a legit thing. He, in theory, is the perfect point guard to have on that team. Great defensively as well. Rebounds the ball, great to run up and down the court. And he has played really well recently. So perhaps this is a thing that we will see in the foregone future, or perhaps it's just, because he listens to the Ball Don't Lie podcast and realized that he had to play better. I don't know. Anyways, though, he is at least probably helping his case, if anything, no matter where he goes. But the Pelicans are a weird spot. They have 6 first-rounders in the next 4 drafts. Josh Hart and J.J. Redick will both be free agents also this upcoming offseason. I figure J.J. Redick won't be back, but they'll probably try to trade him at least. But then also some really bad contracts David Griffin, as great of a team builder as he is, he seems to always get himself stuck in what I call like cap hell, if you will. Did so with the Cavs, paying Tristan Thompson, paying J.R. Smith, paying Iman Shumpert, and that obviously didn't really work out for him at all. That's kind of why he lost his job, although I think he got pressured into doing that. He probably wouldn't have done that if it was up to him. But yeah, Steven Adams and Eric Bledsoe, hear this. They are supposed to make over $100 million combined over the next 3 seasons for guys who have kind of underperformed this year. So, Matt, how do the Pelicans move forward here? How do you get off some of these contracts? Is it because of these bad contracts? Maybe they can't afford Lonzo Ball and or Josh Hart.
Well, I would look definitely to shop both of Steven Adams and Eric Bledsoe, if not at the deadline, definitely over the offseason, maybe package them with one of their 6 first-round picks in the next 4 drafts that they have. But there's just I think there's no way a team's going to be willing to take either of Adams or Bledsoe with the contract they're on unless they are really desperate for one of their limited skill sets or they're able to sweeten the deal with one of those first-round picks. But in terms of Josh Hart and JJ Redick, I think they're both definitely trade candidates. I think Redick is gone by the trade deadline for sure. I think a championship contending team will get desperate and probably fork over something for JJ Redick that the Pelicans cannot refuse. And Josh Hart's an interesting player. I think the Pelicans really like him. I think they'd like to keep him around. But if the right trade comes in for Hart, I don't know how they would turn it down, especially since he is a free agent at season's end.
Yeah, Josh Hart, I think he's like the ultimate role player, as people like to call him. Again, another former Dark Age Laker as well. So, there's quite a lot of them. A lot in the Pelicans, obviously, because they traded all of them. But, yeah, the Pelicans are in a weird spot, Matt. This is a team that I'm like, well, okay, they can make these moves if possible. Trading Bledsoe is going to be rough. I think they like Adams enough to keep him, but I could be wrong. Yeah, that's what I've heard. But Eric Bledsoe, just because of the contract, I don't know if the team's gonna want him. It makes me think back. Should they just? I know they got 3 first-round picks for him, but should they just kept Drew Holiday? Because I feel like now it's starting to look like maybe they potentially should have just kept him.
3 first-round picks is tough to turn down, man. But Eric Bledsoe is kind of booty, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Especially since he's making all that moolah. I don't know what I would do in that situation because Eric Bledsoe is like a fine player, like he's fine off the bench, but like he's definitely not worth all that money, and there's pretty much nothing they can do with him. So it's unfortunate for them.
The difference is that Drew Holiday was on like an expiring deal, and Eric Bledsoe's not. So like making that trade is a little rough. I mean, look, they got the 3 first-round picks. I get it.
But what are those 3 first-round picks? They're probably going to be late picks anyway because they're Milwaukee's, right?
Yeah. So and Giannis signed long-term. I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. I'm sure the Bucks will be at least in the top tier of the East for the next couple of years. So like, I know the Pelicans have been fairly good at drafting. I mean, Zion's obviously like, look, that was a lock no matter who was taking that pick. But Nickeil Alexander-Walker shows some promise. And that's also the point, too, like Kyra Lewis and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, some of these young guys, Jackson Hayes, that they still have on this team, aren't getting as much playing time because there's other vets there. And Stan Van Gundy is playing the vets because, quite frankly, he wants to keep his job. So how does that work? Do you try moving these guys? Do you maybe scale down their minutes? I mean, what's the plan for the Pelicans here? Do you try to make the playoffs? Like, I don't even know.
I think they're going to try to make the playoffs just because they want to get Zion some playoff experience and they want to be, be like attractive to New Orleans because honestly, that city is not interested in basketball in the least bit, even with Zion there. We saw it in the Anthony Davis years when they were competing. Nobody cared. It's just not a good basketball city. So I think they want to show some interest in it and show some interest in winning and be a competitive team because that's what they think will keep the fans showing up once they do let fans back in.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a good point because they got LSU and they have the Saints. Like, it is a football town through and through. And the Pelicans were like either dead last or second to dead last, I think, in like viewership when Zion got there or before Zion got there. So this was a team that was struggling, even with Anthony Davis, a top 5 NBA player, team that was making the playoffs. It was having some playoff success actually too. But nevertheless, they still really weren't, driving the needle. Although Zion's, a little more like box office, I guess, in that sense. But they really weren't doing all that great with the ratings. If I'm them, I did not like their way they approached the bubble. I thought that they were like, it seemed like they didn't care that much. They were limiting Zion's minutes despite the fact they're saying he was 100% healthy. I'm like, why even be there in the first place then? So I am curious to see how this plays out. As a team I did pick to make the playoffs, I think it could happen. You never know. But they do have some work to do.
Yeah, definitely, especially since the top 10 in the West all have winning records, and the Pelicans are, I think they're 11th right now, like you said, but they do have a losing record. They're, I think, 2.5 back of that 10th spot. So they'd have to do some serious work and have another team seriously fall.
Yeah, I think about it. It's a team with 2 All-Stars, and there's like 2 All-Star caliber players with Zion and Brandon Ingram, and yet they're still under 500. That's not ideal.
Defense is important, Hunter.
Defense is important. That is, what we always preach here on Ball Don't Lie. But we've been doing some fun All NBA teams. Last week we did the announcers, and even the great Ryan Rucco somehow got a hold of our podcast for a little bit. So shout out to him. Shout out to our boy Zach Gershman, Sports Night, for showing him that. That was nice of him. I didn't even ask; like, he just did it out of the
Zach on Sports.
Zach on Sports. But we're gonna be doing our All NBA beef teams this week. So basically, we're gonna be talking about some of our favorite beefs in the NBA, either past, and or present. Matt, I have a pretty funny list, but I want to hear who's first for you.
Well, I hope this guy definitely doesn't watch our podcast, because he might be having a hit team out for me. But I'm going to have Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. This one really could be Kevin Durant and every fan outside of the Bay Area. But after Durant left a seemingly title contention situation in Oklahoma City for Golden State after blowing a 3-1 lead to the Warriors in the conference finals, the whole league was up in arms. However, Russell Westbrook tried to put on a face like he didn't care, but he did. Westbrook once said Durant was like a brother to him when the two played together in OKC, and Durant said he loved Westbrook in his MVP speech. Obviously, they were pretty close. And then in their first matchup against each other, Westbrook started the beef by wearing an official photographer vest walking into the arena, and Durant was known for loving photography, so that was obviously a shot at him. The tension only escalated when Durant returned to Oklahoma City for his first game back. The crowd wore shirts that said "coward" spelled with a K and had a cupcake on the back, which I thought was pretty funny. Durant and Westbrook jawed a little bit in that game, and they did seemingly every game after that when they played against each other, including getting face-to-face and calling each other things I cannot say on this podcast. In the end, Westbrook won MVP that first season without Durant, and Durant got 2 titles and 2 finals MVPs, so he probably got the last laugh in that one.
Yeah, I definitely did. That's how it happens to go to a 73-win team, I guess. Yeah, that's definitely one of the more known ones as of recently, of course. And yeah, that's definitely, that's a beef that I think is settled over. I think both guys have moved on. It seems like they are cool, at least cool again. I don't know if they talk every day, probably not, but they're at least, cordial. Maybe that's
cordial, yeah,
very cordial. Between the guys. And like you said, both have been pretty successful since then. One more than others, probably. But yeah, that's definitely a good beef. One that we all kind of witnessed recently. And yeah,
probably one of the most famous recent ones.
Absolutely, and one that we all saw coming. It lived up to it. I remember watching that game, and like it was like after the play, and they were like face to face, and everyone. It was
it was awesome.
And the cupcake shirts. That's a little disrespectful for the Thunder. I don't think they should have done
that.
That
Was so funny.
But it was funny. It was definitely very funny. But I was like, all right, everything Kevin Durant's done for your city. Come on. The guy who arguably should get a statue outside of Chesapeake Arena, for crying out loud. But next on my list, this is a weird one, Matt, but it's gonna make you laugh. Robin Lopez and mascots.
Okay.
Yeah. So I chronicled this a little bit. Some of his most notable beefs. He said that the Toronto Raptor is who annoys him the most. That's the one he hates the most, I guess. He shoved Hooper the Horse, which is a mascot for the Detroit Pistons, on the ground in the pregame tunnel one year. Grizz, who is the Memphis Grizzlies mascot, put a "kick me" sign on Robin Lopez, and he did not like that at all. Chuck the Condor, these guys have beef too. He is the mascot for the Clippers. I know, like the Condor. I don't know. But yeah, I guess they could think of any other animal that started with C, I guess. But anyway, so they have some beef as well. Last year, actually, the Condor made a sign, like a peace treaty, and Robin Lopez signed it. And then apparently it was like one of those ones where like you take off the paper and actually said something else. It said that Brooke is the better brother, and he did not like that at all. Brooke Lopez did. He thought it was funny, but Robin not so much. And also this one hits home for you. He has some beef with Franklin the dog, which is of course the Sixers mascot. They've gone at it a little bit as well. Pierre the Pelican, he ripped off the pants of Pierre the Pelican during a game. That actually happened. So Pierre the Pelican might be a little creepy looking, but nevertheless still felt the wrath of Robin Lopez. And then also he knocked the eyes off the coyote of the San Antonio Spurs. I don't know how that's even possible, but he did it. And then also too, he ganged up with the gorilla from the Phoenix Suns and beat up Harry the Hawk. I don't know what Harry the Hawk did to deserve that. Maybe he was talking some smack, but nevertheless got ganged up by with another mascot. Got ganged up by. Again, I don't know how all this happens. Apparently, there's a whole article I read too before this to try to educate myself on why Robin Lopez is like this to mascots. He said he just does it for fun. Apparently, it's his way of de-stressing. Weird flex, but okay. But I after kind of thinking about this, I thought this was a hilarious beef that makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, it does make no sense, but it's pretty funny. It's pretty entertaining to watch. I do remember him beating up the Pistons mascot in the hallway before the game. That was a pretty funny clip. I've also have like a distinct memory of him like beating up the Chicago Bulls mascot when he didn't play for the Bulls. Yeah, he beat him up too, so that was pretty funny. Yeah, it seems like he's got beef with every mascot that shows up, but I think it's funny. Especially since he's such a below average NBA player that he's not famous for anything else. I think it's funny that he escalates like that.
It's weird niche, I guess he has. But yeah. If you're gonna remember for something, at least leave some sort of legacy behind. But Matt, who else made your list here?
So I've got one of the more famous ones. It's Michael Jordan and Isaiah Thomas. These two clashed in the late 80s and early 90s when both the Pistons and Bulls were at the top of the Eastern Conference. The Pistons had the advantage early, winning 2 straight championships. However, the beef between MJ and Isaiah really picked up after the Bulls beat the bad boy Pistons for the first time in the postseason in 1991. Instead of shaking hands, the Pistons, led by Thomas, walked off the court with 7 seconds left in that game, right past Jordan and the Bulls bench. The beef escalated again when Thomas was left off the 92 Olympic Dream Team, and it was rumored that he was left off because of his relationship with Jordan and other players. The two have hated each other ever since, even to this day. In The Last Dance, the documentary that came out during quarantine, Jordan said, "I respect him and his game," talking about Thomas, "as much as I hate him." Also in the documentary, Thomas explains why they left the floor, and Jordan responded to that clip by simply rolling his eyes. There is no love lost between these two, even 25 years or so later, and it was really rekindled because of The Last Dance.
It's crazy, yeah. The fact that like The Last Dance show that these guys still hate each other. Talk about two guys that can't let go of anything. Oh my God, like Jesus Christ. But yeah, that was definitely one of the most notable things. I remember when watching The Last Dance, it's like, Jesus, they still don't like each other. It's wild. They haven't played in years. So I find that pretty funny. I'm great you brought that up because I did not have that on my list, but that's definitely one of the most, if not the most famous player beef in NBA history, arguably, because of how high profile these guys are, the implications. The Jordan rule got invented when they kept, Bill and Beer kept shoving them to the ground every time. They got like fist fights during playoff games. They played so many times in the playoffs. And then, obviously, like you said, Isaiah, and walking off the court before the game ended, the dream team. There's so much there. It's funny. It's like all basketball, too, it seems like, which is kind of funny. The next beef is a little similar, but not to as much of an extent, because these teams played 3 straight years in the playoffs from 2006 to 2008. And this is the only guy who I've ever seen get under LeBron's skin. And that's DeShaun Stevenson. I don't know how familiar you are with this. Are you familiar with this beef at all?
I think I've watched a YouTube video on it before.
There's a video on it. It's very interesting. Look it up. I think it's SB Nation. But LeBron James and DeShaun Stevenson, this beef's really interesting. I'm going to lay it out for you here. So like I said, in the mid-2000s, 2006, 2007, 2008, the Cavs and the Wizards met in the playoffs each year. And it's funny because the Cavs actually won every single time. They won in 6 in 06. They swept in 07 and then won in 6 and 08. But it was very hard-fought games. Nevertheless here, what really started was that DeShaun Stevenson said LeBron was overrated. And we know, like, he doesn't even respond to Skip Bayless. LeBron's never even acknowledged Skip Bayless, but he let DeShaun Stevenson had it. He said, quote, after the game, like Jay-Z saying something bad about Soulja Boy. There's no comparison, enough said. Like, it was like, oh my God. And then Soulja Boy started going at LeBron too. And that's where this gets interesting because DeShaun Stevenson in game 3 of the 2008 playoffs, he had Soulja Boy sit courtside in the game, and the Wizards won just to troll LeBron. And then it gets worse. Jay-Z gets involved in this. I don't know if you ever heard the song "Blow the Whistle" by Too Short. I was listening to it during the car ride because I brought this up. But Jay-Z hopped on a freestyle, and he said, quote, "Ask my blank LeBron. We so big, we ain't got to respond. We talking about a Don. Please have respect like you talking to your mom. We let the money do the talking. And as you see, we be talking rather often. The Rock Boys in the building, another 150 million. Don't sound like we yelling. Who the blank overrated? If anything, they underpaid him. Like, so he was Jay-Z responded to the Sean Stevenson. Like, that's pretty freaking hilarious. Who would have thought that would have happened? Of course, LeBron and Jay-Z are actually become pretty good friends. And then also after he left the Wizards, he signed with the Dallas Mavericks. And it's funny because they played in the NBA Finals and the Mavericks beat the Miami Heat. And Sean Stevenson wore a shirt that said, "Hey, LeBron, how's my Dirk taste?" So, yeah, it's funny that he ended up getting the ring for LeBron did. But this is the only beef that LeBron's really ever had with a player. Now everyone's like, oh, Kawhi and stuff, blah, blah, blah. But LeBron took this one personally. Sean Stevenson said that he regrets having beef with LeBron. He said he wished it never happened. He has a lot of respect for him. But it's pretty funny because, again, like, this is young LeBron on the Cavs. He wasn't proven, didn't really win much yet. Only really went to the NBA Finals. This is one of the most underrated beefs, I feel like, in NBA history, but it's a very entertaining one that has a lot of layers to it.
Yeah, that is very entertaining. I honestly did not know all the extent, especially with the rappers getting involved. Jay-Z, that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But you got to remember, this is young LeBron too. Like, this is LeBron when he was our age. Like, I think something like that would definitely bother him, especially with how much Sean Stevenson came after him and really kind of messed with him by having Soulja Boy at that game. That's pretty funny. I didn't know that. It's always funny too how high the emotions run when you're actually playing in the game. And once you get to out of retirement and you're in retirement, you're like, I probably shouldn't have done that. But I thought it was funny. I think it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was definitely a beef when I was making this list. I remember that one. I was like, that's definitely one of the most like interesting beefs like that we've had in quite some time. But Matt, who else made your list here?
So this is funny because you brought him up in the last beef I had. This is another old beef that still lasts to this day and also involves a Piston from the Bad Boys era. You probably know who I'm talking about. It's Bill Laimbeer and Larry Bird. Laimbeer is widely considered the dirtiest player in NBA history, and it seemed like everyone outside of Detroit hated this man with a passion. The most famous part of this beef is the time that Laimbeer essentially tackled Bird to the ground on a layup attempt, a move that would be punished by death in today's NBA. And Bird obviously got pissed about it and threw the ball at Laimbeer while being restrained, which I thought is hilarious. However, this was the climax to beef that had been brewing, as Laimbeer had hit Bird with many elbows in previous matchups, and Bird once said after a playoff game years prior that Laimbeer is going to flop around like a fish out of water every time he gets a chance. I thought it was pretty funny. Laimbeer knew his role, and he executed to the nth degree, especially with Bird, as Laimbeer got Bird ejected from that playoff game that Bird threw the ball in. Essentially, Bird did exactly what Laimbeer wanted him to do, all while Laimbeer claimed that he didn't do anything. The beef still lives on today, as when Laimbeer was asked in an interview a few years back about what he would say if Bird was next to him, he simply said he would go to a different table. So it's a pretty deep beef.
This is a deep beef. It's very interesting that you bring this one up, Matt. Like you said, I'm glad you're going deep in your bag here with some of these throwbacks. One, Larry Bird, like you said, the ultimate trash talker, maybe the best in NBA history. He was really, really good and slick with it. People always like Larry Bird's trash talk game was top notch compared to anybody else. And Bill Laimbeer, kind of the irritant. He was able to kind of get away with a lot because he always did it. You can't call it every single time. It's kind of like someone like a Patrick Beverly, who doesn't do what Bill Laimbeer does. But he plays so aggressive that you can't call a foul every single time because it's just going to screw everything up. But Bill Laimbeer had that bad boy reputation, kind of like an enforcer in hockey, that really their only point is just to beat up the other team. That was Bill Laimbeer's job, basically. And he, like you said, executed it to the T. This, again, the Pistons and the Boston Celtics had that Eastern Conference rivalry going on. And, yeah, this was definitely very fitting. I'm glad you brought that one up.
Yeah, and I feel like you could have picked anybody with Bill Laimbeer. He had beef with probably the entire league, especially that everybody on that Bad Boys Pistons team. He knew his role. He was perfect at it.
Yeah, obviously Isaiah Thomas is the face. When we think of Bad Boys and like what they did, Bill Laimbeer is the face of that.
Bill Laimbeer and Rick Mahorn.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yep.
Psychopaths.
So yeah, speaking of stuff getting away with or maybe lack thereof, my next beef is DeMarcus Cousins and refs.
Okay.
Yeah, he has 136 career technicals, Matt. And if he keeps it up, he's on pace to have the most all-time in NBA history. He also is second all-time in ejections with 13. the great Rasheed Wallace is first with 29, so we'll see if he catches up to him at all. That's gonna be a little hard. He also was getting ejected before in games he didn't even play, just because all the amount of smack he was talking to the refs. He just can't help himself, Matt. The refs don't like DeMarcus Cousins. DeMarcus Cousins has countless of. I was trying to look up how many times DeMarcus Cousins has called out a ref after a game, and I could not find a number. Like, it was like impossible. There are too many articles to count. So DeMarcus Cousins and the refs do not have a great relationship, and I'm not sure that's ever going to get fixed.
No, definitely not. And even this year, like, you could see Cousins has like tried to restrain himself, and the refs are still chucking him out of games when he was playing with the Rockets. He's gonna have to find a new team to get some more ejections, though. I don't know if they let free agents get ejected from anything, but we'll see. I could totally see him being like a fan, like retired at a court, like in a courtside situation, and still getting ejected from being a fan. That could totally be DeMarcus Cousins. Yeah, he hates the refs, and the refs hate him. It's quite the beef.
Yeah, it is, and one that's still ongoing. I know my first couple ones are, LeBron, Deshaun Stevenson. That's in the past, but DeMarcus Cousins, that beef will always stay, and it will always be entertaining every time I watch. But who else made the list here?
Hunter, it's really funny you brought up the refs one, because I have also another player with the refs, and it's a guy you mentioned, Rasheed Wallace and the refs. This one's a funny one, and we even brought Wallace up a few weeks ago for an All-NBA team. I forget which one that was, but Wallace is famous for being the man with the most technical fouls in NBA history, as you said, and being at the center of the most famous brawl in sports history, the Malice at the Palace. However, it did seem like Wallace often had a target on his back and would get fouls called against him, and an unfairly quick whistle to get a technical foul from refs all across the league. It wasn't just one. It was pretty much all of them had a vendetta against him. He still has by far the funniest ejection of all time, getting ejected because he stared at a ref for too long in the 2000 Western Conference Finals. It is hilarious. The ref goes, whack, get out, and it's hilarious. And his teammates like trying to vouch for him, like, what do you do? What do you do? And he said, the ref said, I told him to stop staring at me. He wouldn't do it, and so I tossed him. One of the funniest ejections of all time in any sport. Hilarious.
I still think maybe the funniest one was Tim Duncan. Like, just he got out of the game and didn't even play. He was like, or he was just on the bench. He got thrown out.
He was just on the bench. Yeah,
he didn't say a word. Tim Duncan can't speak. I think he maybe said 10 words most in his life. Like got thrown out. So that one's funny too. Yeah, I'm glad we were thinking on the same page with that. Because if I didn't say DeMarcus Cousins, I would have said Rasheed Wallace 100%. But yeah, obviously mine's maybe DeMarcus is the current day Rasheed Wallace. Rasheed Wallace, is the predecessor, like father, like son, I guess. And that's always great having beef with the refs. Next on my list, this is a current beef. Both these guys are still playing, and it's probably the most long-standing beef in the NBA. And that's Chris Paul and Rajon Rondo. We saw it at its height through hands in that Lakers Rockets game just a couple years ago. And that one really, really escalated. Even Brad Ingram got in on that too. Got back and started the whole thing, but it was everything lined up perfectly for the Chris Paul Rondo fight, and Rondo gave him a 2-piece extra crispy. But anyways, though, this dates back to as far as their rookie seasons. They ended. I got you with that one. Oh my god. Anyway, this beef dates back as far as they pretty much first came in the league. I think it's funny because each of them have what the other one doesn't. Rondo now is a 2-time champion and he used to heckle Chris Paul saying, "You're not a winner. You're never going to win a champion. You'll never be like me." Whereas Chris Paul had the accolades, the All-Star, the All-NBAs. And Rondo, he's like, "Well, you're never going to be as good of a basketball player as me." He's like, "Yeah, but I win games and you don't." So like, it was always funny, the back and forth. No love has been lost since. These guys definitely still hate each other to this day. It's probably the funniest beef. You have like Rondo, who's both these guys are like irritants. They both get under your face. They're both very loud basketball players, both very smart basketball players. This is probably the longest beef still going on today in the NBA, and it's definitely one that's entertaining. I wonder if there's another chapter to this book.
Oh, God, I can only hope for so much. I can only hope for a Suns-Lakers matchup in the playoffs. That'd be awesome. Oh, no, he doesn't play for the Lakers anymore.
Those are the Hawks.
No. Yeah. Hopefully Rondo gets traded back to a Western Conference team so they can play in the playoffs. What if he gets traded to the Suns? That'd be hilarious. Anyway, we were kind of robbed of a Thunder Lakers series last year in the playoffs, because if that would have happened, it would have been Rondo against Chris Paul, and especially since Rondo's brother or something was in the stands, Instead of Westbrook yelling at his brother, it would have been Chris Paul. That would have been awesome. We got robbed, man.
We did. Oh man, if James Harden didn't block that shot, oh man. Thanks, James Harden. But anyways, though, it all worked out great. The Lakers won a championship. No complaints. But anyways, though, Matt, who rounds out the list for you here?
So I have a pretty funny one. It's Shaquille O'Neal and JaVale McGee. This beef became so nasty that both of their mothers got involved. McGee was often a target of Shaq and a recurring character on Shaq and a Fool, a segment designed to make fun of some awful plays on an NBA court. The stats back it up too, as McGee has been on the most episodes of any NBA player and even won Shaq an MVP twice, a great accomplishment. JaVale revealed he did not love being slandered on national television, a shock, I know. Shaq then made a trailer parody of the Doctor Strange trailer, but of all JaVale McGee lowlights, to which McGee responded, at Shaq, get my fill in the blank out of your mouth. Shaq responded by saying he would kick the crap out of McGee. I again censored that. And McGee didn't take too kindly to that either. Again, also shocking. Then Kevin Durant got involved as the whole beef exploded into something that became extremely public. That's when Lucille O'Neal got involved, as she said she defended Shaq and a Fool, but the Twitter beef took it too far, saying, quote, it's not funny anymore. Then Pamela McGee also got involved, saying Shaq cyberbullied her son and that he should lose his job or be suspended. Shaq got put in place by his mama and said JaVale's name would never come out of his mouth again, but he also doubled down on the fact that he hadn't done anything wrong. And then if he was a player during this time, he simply wouldn't mess up in the game anymore. And then JaVale never appeared on Shaq and a Fool again.
He actually has brought up JaVale McGee since, though. So I don't know. Maybe some bridges have been mended. Yeah, also Pamela McGee did play in the WNBA, fun fact.
Yeah, she was a legend. She was pretty good.
Yeah, she was. So I guess she understands the game and how it works, and it was like, this is still too far. Yeah, it really should just be Shaq versus anyone for beef. It seems like he just like beefing for the fun of it. He's kind of one of those guys, a little bit of a troll, if you will. Yeah, that was definitely a great one, a funny one that you brought up. Obviously, JaVale McGee did end up making Shaq happy, winning a championship with the Los Angeles Lakers. It's funny, him and Dwight Howard, because Dwight Howard was a victim of a lot of those Shaq beefs too.
Yep.
He said they literally confided in each other because of their relationship with Shaq and how he talked about them. I'm like, oh my God, that's kind of funny. But yeah, I'm really glad you brought that one up. That's definitely one of the funnier, more public beefs that probably went a lot crazier than we could have thought in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of my favorite ones just because it's so random and it's like crazy how like television and all that stuff influences, beef between people that probably wouldn't have known each other otherwise.
Yeah, next on my list, and this is a random one too. And it's funny because this beef has nothing to do with on the basketball court at all. It's strictly off basketball. Both these guys were retired when this happened. Or no, sorry, one of them wasn't. And you might know where I'm going with this. Matt Barnes and Derek Fisher.
Oh my God! Yes. I know where you're going. Continue.
Yep, exactly. Continue. So this one,
it didn't click, but then I was like, what is it? Oh,
yeah. To paint the picture here, basically. So a couple of years ago, Matt Barnes was going through a messy divorce with his ex-wife, and he FaceTimed his sons one day, and he said, "Oh, is that Derek Fisher in the background?" And then he's like, "Yeah, he's dating mom." And Matt Barnes did not like that at all. So he went to Derek Fisher's house and beat the crap out of him, beat the brakes off him in front of everyone, like on the spot. And to the point where Kanye West made a song called 30 Hours. And in that song said, I'm going to drive 90 miles like Matt Barnes just to beat somebody up. He said it in a little more colorful language. But so it got really, really public to the point where Matt Barnes actually had a quote saying violence isn't the answer, but sometimes it is. He got suspended from the Memphis Grizzlies for a little bit. But apparently these guys are cool now. He thought that Derek Fisher broke the bro code. He said he wasn't mad at the situation. Just the fact that he didn't say anything is what really pissed him off. He actually said that he is cool with Derek Fisher now. Both guys are living successful careers. Derek Fisher was recently promoted, not only the coach, but also the GM of the LA Sparks. Matt Barnes has a very cool podcast called All the Smoke with Steven Jackson. Highly recommend listening to it. One of my favorites. So both these guys are doing well. Matt Barnes did gain custody of his kids from his crazy ex-wife. So I guess that's a Derek Fisher problem now. He actually says that Derek Fisher's very nice to his kids, and he actually is completely fine that he's kind of like the stepfather, if you will. So he actually is okay with it now. But he gained custody of his kids, something very hard. Men don't typically do that very often. Got full custody. And so shout out Matt Barnes there. Give credit where it's due. This is definitely one of the funniest beefs. The amount of memes that came out afterwards, the fact that Kanye somewhat made a song about it or reference in the song is hilarious. And yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite beefs that really doesn't have much to do with basketball, but it does because it's NBA players.
Nothing to do with basketball. That's hilarious. Wow, I completely forgot about that. Oh my goodness. Wow. Yeah, is Derek Fisher still with Matt Barnes' ex-wife?
I think so. I'm gonna look it up. I think he is. I'm gonna look that one up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
Derek Fisher.
Shout out Matt Barnes though, with the ultimate pettiness of driving 90 miles to go beat the crap out of somebody. That's awesome.
All right, so it wasn't actually 90 miles though. Matt Barnes clarified. He goes, actually, it was like he lived like down the road. It was like 10 minutes away. He's like, I appreciated Kanye saying that. Because Kanye was like, he's like, that wasn't actually true. But let me see. Yes, I think that's her name. Hold on. I think they still are because I see a recent Instagram picture and I see Matt Barnes' sons. Both in the back right there. So, it's still a thing that they're dealing with. But Matt Barnes actually said he's cool with Derek Fisher. He has no issues with him.
That's good.
Yeah.
Damn.
When keeping it real goes wrong, I guess. Anyways, so that's gonna wrap it up here on Ball Don't Lie. Ending on a fun note, I guess. I love doing these all NBA teams, and it's actually been quite fun the last couple of weeks doing these fun teams, and hopefully you get a laugh out of it too. Also great for soundbite reasons that we promote on our social medias. Be sure to check it out. Thank you all for listening. We're gonna be approaching episode 40 soon, but episode 39 is gonna be coming up next week. So thanks for listening, and have a good rest of your week.
Like, subscribe, and turn those notifications on, baby.
Thank you for watching this edition of Penn State Sports Night. If you're a fan of our content, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more clips. Also, follow us on Twitter at PSSN TV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with all the action. For all my colleagues, we are Penn State Sports Night.